From the Columbus City School studios, welcome to Face Us. It's the show that connects families, community, and schools. Here are your hosts, Seneca Bing and Garima Woldemariam.
Hey friend.
Hey friend.
And hey you, Columbus. Welcome back to part 2 of our all-important conversation on mental health with Jewel Woods. And I also got to speak with some middle schoolers about social-emotional learning and how to de-escalate and help to regulate, because you know those middle schoolers, it can be tough to navigate those spaces. Oh, buddy. And that's what we're talking about today on Faces.
Math is everywhere you look. It's in everything you do. And it can be fun to use. Join us for today's episode of Math Everywhere, with Renee Harris, our host.
Hello and welcome to Math Everywhere. Today, we're at Centennial High School with the robotics team. Say hi, guys.
Hi.
This is Leah Chulo, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what they're working on in robotics class.
Building a robot for a game that changes every year. In our programming, we have to give it directions based on distances in millimeters, using the controls we set up ahead of time to get points in the game against other robots.
Great. So, Leah, I heard a lot of interesting things. I heard you say something about measurement, something about speed. Now, as you know, I'm all about pointing out the math and everything everywhere. So tell us, is there a specific math that you use when you're programming for your robot?
Gear ratios, we have to use a lot of ratios when we're trying to figure out how many times the wheels turn. This one is 19.2 to 1 ratio.
We love that math.
So this is our autonomous program where our robot runs on its own from code that we made by ourselves. As you can see, it's turning and going on its own. And so these are the measurements we have to use and see how far it has to go. A lot of geometry. We have to figure out the different angle measurements, especially in our autonomous programming. When we let the robot move on its own, we have to measure out every single thing that it does. So when it moves forward, we have to say, move forward that amount of feet. With what we're doing right now, with how our slide is going up, we also have to set a limit on that. And also this arm here, we have 4 different distances it can move at. So it can go all the way down like this, or it can go all the way back like that.
Angles definitely come to mind. Yes. Obtuse, acute, and right angles.
So sometimes a robot only needs to move like halfway like this, or sometimes it'll need to move at a full 90-degree angle and go all the way from here to here.
So and that full 90-degree angle, what is that? That is a right angle. Look at you all go. All right. And then I did hear that you all say that this can move and operate on its own.
Yes.
Can we see that?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
So right now,
and
it's
moving on its own
exactly
now.
on its own. There's nobody controlling it, and it's moving exactly how we set the program to move it.
So basically what I do is the robot, after it runs autonomous,
Yes.
it's supposed to bring one of those samples in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the sample and clip it on this. Okay. And then I'm just gonna place it right there. Okay, so it's gonna look something like this. Then I'm gonna place it there, and then the robot is gonna come and pick this. So yeah, you have to like really know math to know if you're doing the programming.
Yes.
So you have to know the angles and the distances. You have to.
Angles, distances. What else, Destiny?
That's it. Angle, distances. Yeah.
Okay. There's math everywhere.
I am the coach of our robotics team. My role is to kind of tell our drivers what to do. I'm also looking out for other robots on the field. Typically there's 4 teams playing in a match, and I'm trying to see where other robots on the field, and I do a little bit of math myself.
So the matches really do sound exciting.
They are.
But I have this question for you. So as you prepare your robot for that 2.5-minute match, how much time is spent preparing for the match?
It depends on different things, like whether something is broken and we have to fix it, or if it's all we have to do is switch the colors of our team numbers, because there's a red side and a blue side. Or if we just have to swap a battery, it's really dependent.
In robotics,
math is everywhere.
Welcome to Faces, family. Today, we have part 2 of our conversation where we're digging into mental health. In part 1, we had the opportunity to speak to the scholars at Ohio Avenue, and today we're here with the beautiful scholars of Columbus City Preparatory School for Girls. Let's take a moment to introduce yourselves. Why don't we go ahead and start here?
Hi, my name is Ash and I'm in 7th grade.
Hi, my name is Aowen and I'm also in 7th grade.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle and I am in the 7th grade.
Hi, my name is Farron. I'm in the 7th grade too. Hello, my name is Kamaya and I am in the 7th grade.
All right, so all 7th grade scholars, we're happy to have you guys with us. So let's talk a little bit about mental health and the restorative practices work that you do here. So when I say the words mental health, how does that make you feel, Kamaya?
I feel like I think of emotions, some good and some bad.
What about you? What do you think of when we say mental health?
We mostly all think that it's emotions because you could feel good or bad emotions during like good health or mental health or like your bad mental health, stuff like
right.
that.
Gabrielle, what about you? What do you think of when you think of mental health? How does that make you feel?
The words mental health honestly make me feel it helps me realize how much people can go through without you realizing. So when I think of that, I think of people around me that could be going through a mental health crisis that you just don't know.
Okay. So let's stop before we do any other questions, and let's do just a check-in with you guys. Tell me a little bit about how your heart is this morning.
My heart feels very good, very full of like happiness and all the great things. There is a tug of being overwhelmed, but I feel like that just comes with every day.
My heart is doing okay, but it's kind of going downhill, to be completely honest.
Okay, well, hopefully we can talk you through that and help support you, okay? What about the rest of you? How's your heart this morning?
My heart is feeling great. I am amazed that I had this opportunity and that I was chosen to show the school in a certain way.
My heart has been good. It has been very intense, but other than that, it's been great. My heart is really good. Like, I'm really excited, and I am glad that I got chosen to do this.
So let's talk about what we were here to discuss today, which is restorative practices. You guys use that strategy here in this building and in many other buildings in Columbus City schools. Talk to me about that.
The strategy that we use, we call it sister circles, where a teacher or a student who wants to lead, they will think of a question or they'll pull a question out of like a bucket and they'll read it off, they'll say their opinion, and then they'll pass it around, let others say what they think of the question and their answer.
Okay, and does everyone have to say something or is it optional?
It's optional if you do not want to, if you don't want to answer the question, if you just don't have an answer or it makes you a bit uncomfortable, you don't have to say it. You just say either skip me or not right now.
They'll basically pull you out of class to work it out, and you'll have Mr. Pickle, and you'll pass it around.
Now, who's Mr. Pickle?
It's a plushie that's a pickle.
Okay.
And you basically pass the pickle around and try to solve the problem that you're having with that person.
So sometimes they'll just pull us out of class and they'll just sit us in a room with the person. And being pulled out of class is something that is very common for the school because as young scholars, we are taught to know how to manage our time and know how to manage our education so that in the instance we do have to be pulled out of class, we can be able to get back up on our feet afterwards. But they will pull us out of class and they will just have us talk over it, and they'll have one person talk at a time. So one person can explain, oh, this is my issue, this is what I had with this. And then the other person can go in and go ahead and say, oh, well, this is what I had. I thought that you said this, that frustrated me.
Is it difficult for you, so Ash, I'll start with you, is it difficult for you or hard for you to talk about your feelings?
Yes, it is hard to talk about my feelings because I might either cry or just get frustrated.
Is there a strategy that you use to help you through something like that?
Probably just taking a break, or just probably not talking about it.
As middle schoolers, you guys know sometimes there are stereotypes around middle school kids. So could you talk a little bit about some of the things that you really want the adults watching to know about you scholars that are in middle school? What are some things you wish they knew about you at this age?
One thing that adults and even parents do this, what they like to assume is that, like, if you said, oh, I'm feeling this, especially if you're a teenager or a teenage girl, they like to assume that, like, oh, you're just being, like, extra, like, oh, I was extra at this age, or you're just being just really emotional, which it can be sometimes, but there's other times where I'm trying to tell you something that I feel, and I'm trying to be honest. But then there's like, oh, you're being extra, or you're just being, like, you're being too much right now, which that can kind of get on my nerves, because I'm trying to tell you how I'm feeling, and I'm trying to get over this and vent to you, yet you're just telling me I'm being overwhelmed or overwhelming.
So it sounds like you would want us as adults to listen and validate your feelings.
When I go to my room and I, like, shut my door and I want to be alone, I need my space. I first of all need my space. And they always think it's either the phone or social media.
But you're just asking for space.
Most of the teachers think that if they hand you like a worksheet, like you're gonna know what to do right away. Sometimes they be putting too much pressure on us because they think that because they went through this, that's gonna be easy for us, which clearly sometimes it's not.
So sometimes in, like, class, sometimes, like, I'll have my head down, and this happens with some of my classmates, and they'll ask if I'm okay, but all am I doing is just, like, putting my head down. I just need to, like, have a moment, and then they keep, like, asking me, like, am I okay? And I'm saying I'm okay, and then to the point where now I'm not okay because you keep asking me if I'm okay. And I feel like it's just, like, I just need a moment to myself and, like, to just calm down.
You know, what's interesting in what you guys are saying, you all probably have cell phones. I have a cell phone. We're very connected with technology, but it sounds like what you're saying is we need to be more connected on a personal level so that I can recognize the signs of when she's good. Kamaya's good. Let me give her a moment, okay? And she's good. So it's that time and connection and talking.
I think just overall all I have to really say is that middle school is a big jump from elementary school. In elementary school, you stay with the same girls all day. In middle school, you'll switch classes throughout days, sometimes switch with the same girls, sometimes not. And then in elementary, it's just like a bunch of differences between elementary school and middle school. So I just feel like just being able to realize and know that the switch and the jump and the change from elementary school over to middle school is very stressful for certain girls. I know when I first joined middle school, not just this middle school was overwhelming, but just like middle school in general was overwhelming to me. It's very overwhelming, it's very stressful because there's a lot of things at this school that my elementary school would never do. Not because they didn't have the opportunities or nothing like that, just because they didn't feel we were ready or wanted to. So just being in middle school in general is something that is stressful and that is just overwhelming. So I feel like just adults being able to check in on you and make sure that you are okay, even though, and I know what Kamaya and the rest of them said, like, oh, you need your time, you need your space, but some moments you don't want space, you just don't want to be around nobody. And that might be a little bit confusing to hear, but I mean, like, you don't really want to be alone, but you think that it's the best at the moment, but most of the time it's really not. But then there are moments where it's the best to be alone.
It's really good and important for us to hear this as adults. And again, this is a different dynamic, being in an all-girls school. You guys are powerhouses, and I look forward to the great things you're gonna do in the future. So hopefully our audience can take some of these tips and tools and work those into the young people that they support. So I applaud you and the work that you're doing. Thank you all for sharing a little bit about your lives. Welcome. I have today joining me Jewel Woods, who is the founder and clinical director of the Male Behavioral Health and the Center for Men and Boys. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
So you are here and we're just going to talk about one topic that is so near and dear to my heart and very, very important. We're talking about mental health for our children. We're talking about how families can help kind of support and break the stigma because there's sometimes stigma around mental health. And so it's really hard for a parent if they struggle to look in the mirror to see that their child also needs to look in the mirror, right? And so you brought up a great point of really starting with us, right, as the parent and really identifying who we are in that mirror so that we can support our children. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
It's almost, it's not impossible, but it's certainly difficult to talk about regulating your child if you're not regulated, right? But that's also part of, I think, the grace that we can offer parents because part of self-grace is what? If I knew then what I knew now, right, I do differently. And if parents can take that sort of perspective, particularly to parenting, I ask adults this question all the time just to give them some sense about the power of parenting. So I ask an adult, I say, what would it be like for you if for the next 18 years of your life, you know, imagine if you're 30 or 34, the next 18 years of your life, somebody's going to tell you what to do, what to dress, who your friends were, and all that stuff. And most adults look at you like, but that's the power of parenting, right? That's exactly what we're doing with our kids. We got 18 years to do this. And to your point, if we're not paying attention to what's happening with us, our attitudes, our issues. I'll share with you, I had, not even a client, but a good friend called this morning. He's a national anchor person. And he literally was just talking about the anxiety that people in the workforce are feeling post-elections. And what he was being honest with himself and confessing was that a lot of that now is he feels that irritability and anxiety spilling over in his relationships at home with his wife and with his children, right? We're living in a very uncertain world. And the reality is, as adults, perhaps even more so than youth, we're worrying, we're wondering, right, about what this next step is. And so we're listening to social media all the time. You can imagine the stress that we have. And so to your point, if we're not paying attention to what's happening with us, then the idea that that might be something that we are unconsciously communicating or contributing to our children is really, really an opportunity for us to kind of self-reflect, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then another part, you brought up research and you also brought up social media. And one of those big things, and our males, I'm a boy mom, I have boys. But one, and you brought up suicide, one suicide that really stuck with me was Twitch, because you said you could seem happy and you could seem
have
like
a lot of money, supposedly doing great.
So all of the things that a lot of people think are important. But he was still suffering.
Very much so.
And so as you think about that, because you said that the symptoms do not present the same way, has your perspective on mental health changed over time?
Oh, absolutely. No, it's another wonderful question. Specifically in relationship to social media, right? So much of this culture requires that we, are front-facing. The things that males have been told all their lives, fix your face and all that sort of stuff, is now the culture that we live in, because we're constantly trying to share and present. But we also know that comparison is the thief of joy. And so this idea of constantly putting out lives to kind of create an image has at its cost, again, the things that we sort of hide. And the reality is, my perspective of mental health has changed. And again, it really is important if you depending upon what demographic you're talking about. But for youth, the real goal is to make sure that parents know that it's more important to be raising successful adults than it is to be raising compliant children, right?
That's right.
So much of us, we work so hard, and having our kids be respectful and all that stuff is really what we think is the standard of being a good child. But being a good child in many ways is about having access to the full range of your emotions, having the ability to be able to regulate, but also to connect with others. And parents have an opportunity to really cultivate that in their children, not raise them. For adults, it's changed. We're doing this current project where we're interviewing men in their 80s. And it's been fascinating for me to listen to men many of whom who didn't think that they would, get that to that point, to have them reflect on legacy, right? To have them reflect on certain things like regret, right? We don't talk enough about, for example, right, exploring some of the negative emotions, bitterness, resentment, right? And how those things might sort of play themselves out. So as I've become, a better clinician, I like to believe, the things that give me passion, purpose, and peace, my perspective of the life course of mental health has changed in terms of what actually is helpful to kind of protect and provide for people over time.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Sure.
And so when you think about just listening, right? You mentioned listening to people.
Yeah.
So you're a clinician.
Yeah.
You do that. You know how. If we are school personnel or a teacher or because our children, our students, they spend a lot of time away from us, the parents. And so the community, right, our village, how can we listen to students more and help our families?
No, it's a great question. I would say, creating space for it. Part of what's, interesting about my journey, I don't know if, I'll just share honestly. Like I dropped out of high school when I was 14 years old, coming from a very different lifestyle than what I live now. And the challenges of the average day teacher to deal with, all the teacher wants to do is be able to teach. But, as a young person, I brought all of the problems from my, background, family and stuff into the classroom. And part of what's difficult for, any adult to hear is something that children are not even in a place to be even share. So, for example, today, obviously, kids say all the time, I'm feeling some type of way.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't say anything, right? They don't have the vocabulary yet to be able to sort of. So again, going back to this whole question about listening for teachers, it's creating space for young folks to find their voice. Safe spaces. To actually say what's going on in your life. In ways where embarrassment and ridicule doesn't happen or follow.
That's right.
So much of youth culture and youth life is about putting somebody on blast and on Front Street. And what we have as an opportunity, particularly in a sort of classroom and learning environment, is to create these spaces where, at a minimum, these youth get an opportunity to kind of share what's going on with them. And it's particularly important for men and boys because, I make a distinction as a clinician between sharing, disclosing, and confessing, right? They're not the same thing.
They're not.
Sharing is what brothers do in the barbershop.
That's right.
Disclosing is what you do on your taxes. And confessing is what you tell your spouse that you didn't put on your taxes, right? So there's different levels of that. But what we have is an opportunity to really cultivate that. Some of that has to do with closeness. Most people are not going to communicate with you if you're not close.
That's right.
And it has to do with this whole intention of being attentive to their lives and showing that you value them, asking them about what's happening, not necessarily being afraid of it. The last thing I'll just say is, that's easier said than done because young people bring a lot to the table. They bring a little attitude and for real and all that stuff. And so having the ability to be able to sit through all of that is also is important. And so, how do we listen? You show undeniable commitment to their lives, but you're also prepared to deal with the consequences.
Absolutely.
You're not frightened by it. So one of the things that has to happen with men and boys, and I share this lovingly with educators, they can't be afraid of them.
Yes.
You can't be afraid of black boys who are 6'2", or 200 some pounds,
That's right.
who get mad and use their hands and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I can't share with you how my career was totally dictated by the fact that when I was in community mental health, I was the person that, the people would direct all their clients to because they were just afraid to deal with them, right? You got a guy in the what do you call it, in the office area out there crying, and people think he's going to go postal.
Right.
But he's not going postal, he's just going through a divorce. He should be crying, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of fear, particularly with working with males, so that listening means, not being afraid to listen on certain levels. So all of that stuff, it is, it starts off with that sort of intention, being committed to the interior lives of young folks.
You summed it up all the way. And, I think back to my days working in high school with young people, and I always say you cannot wear your emotions on your sleeve if you are working with young people because they seem unbothered by everything, especially
And they
high
should,
school kids,
right? They should, right? Everything else, right?
Yes. But we had a previous small conversation, and one thing that you grazed over, but I picked it up, is you said that you dropped out of high school when you were 14.
Yes.
And when we were talking previously, you said you are teaching clinicians at the University of Michigan,
Oh yeah.
But you are teaching, and so what that says to me is we cannot give up on our children.
No.
Just because they exhibit some behaviors or or maybe going through some things, we can't discount them.
No.
And so I appreciate you bringing that
I
up.
appreciate you. So again, your biography is not your destiny and all that stuff.
Right.
But listen, my mother was. And I shared this recently. My mother was, suffered from addiction all her life. My freshman year in college, I remember driving back from Oberlin College to find her in crack houses. So that's my story.
Yeah.
And I've talked at, I've given speeches at United Nations and all that, but I'm a high school dropout, right? And it was only through, people who saw certain things in me, adults in the community. Even the brothers that were doing bad who kind of, said, Jewel, leave him alone.
You're kind of not like us.
You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
Or at least that he just got something else, right? So that sort of piece and that level of protection, concern, again, to this day, is something that I, only thank God for. But 100%, people's biographies does not determine their destiny.
Absolutely.
Not at all.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you brought that to this forum, because people can look at you now and see what you're doing and they have a perception or they think you came from a certain place.
Yes.
And so to never forget that and to be able to just bring it up and say it, thank you.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I know you have some things happening in the community. I want to give you a chance to let us know.
So first and foremost, we are ramping up for Black Girl Dad Week.
Yes.
We're in our third year here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm super excited to say we'll be in 6 cities as well.
Wow.
But Black Girl Dad Week. Thank you so much. We'll be in, it's the second week of February. This year will be February 10th through February 16th. Okay. Black Girl Dad Week is a week-long series of events and activities designed to show the importance of Black fathers and father figures in the lives of women and girls. The big marquee event, of course, is Black Father-Daughter Dance at COSI. We get, we sell out every year, get over 1,000 people.
Wow.
But the entire week is dedicated to showing the importance of men and advocating for, women and girls. So Monday is Politics Day. Tuesday is Take Your Daughter to School Day. Wednesday is Take Your Daughter to Work Day. Thursday is a call to men. Friday is Healing and Reconciliation Day. Yes. Saturday is Black Father-Daughter Dance, and Sunday is Black Love and Black Date Night. So it's an entire week dedicated to these activities. We have that in April, March or April. We actually I just met this morning. So we're actually also working with Franklin County Coroner's Office. We are really geared towards doing an entire policy symposium on deaths of despair. The reality is, I'll be short, when you look, 70% of all overdose deaths, 70% of all suicides, 70% of all homicides are males. And this summer we will be having our first ever grief camp. We oftentimes, particularly for urban youth and minority youth in particular, talk about trauma. And there's no doubt, for example, when it comes to gun violence and all the things that youth are exposed to, that trauma is really important. But we don't sometimes talk about loss, right? And to, not talk about loss is to not talk about some other really important clinical factors. And so we are excited to offer the first ever summer grief camp focused on culturally and clinically appropriate grief care. So yes, we're super excited about those things, and happen to be working throughout the state and across states now on some of these initiatives.
That is amazing, and I'm so glad that it's happening. You got to keep us posted, so that we can make sure that we get things out to our families to become involved. And so we talked about some very heavy stuff, and but some great work that is happening to help. Thank you so much for joining us, and just for all of the welcome knowledge and information and just what you are doing for the community. It is not taken for granted.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well.